It's the finer details that mark out a great game from a good one, especially in a world where developers are creating huge experiences that players are encouraged to live in for years at a time in order to keep spending, but let's ignore that cynical aspect for a second. It's the small touches that allow a game to stop feeling artificial and instead, for a moment anyway, appear real. As graphics continue to get better and devs are given new tools to play around with, new releases constantly find new ways to blow gamers away. Gone are the days where we'd lose our minds because a character's clothes actually got wet when they went in water. Now it's all about how their ear cartilage goes see-through when the sun shines on it. Yeah, we're a bit of a weird lot, aren't we? However, while a lot of this added detail is of course welcome, sometimes you get the impression that the devs might as well have not bothered. We might notice it because we're the kind of people who scrutinize everything, but for most people, these little features will never ever be appreciated. I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are 9 video games that put insane effort into details nobody noticed. Number 9, Horses Sweat, Red Dead Redemption 2. This entire list could have been about Red Dead Redemption 2, and we've actually already made plenty of videos discussing the crazy amount of detail packed into Rockstar's sequel, so have a mosey over to those if you want some more juicy content. But it is a game that just keeps on giving. On top of corpses decomposing and horseballs shrinking because of the weather, which, as you might have guessed, is my personal favourite, it's also been discovered that horses in the game actually sweat depending on the temperature. Now, it was mind-blowing when GTA had playable characters who sweated through their clothes, but at least you noticed and appreciated the feature there. Here, there's a good chance you'll never be that close to a horse to actually realise. After all, you spend most of the time obscuring the animals that you're riding. It's amazing to highlight how far we've come, but at least you noticed the horse testicles, didn't you? Number 8, cops respond differently depending on the neighbourhood, Mafia III. Mafia 3 isn't lacking in problems. After an amazing introduction, the story-driven gameplay quickly gives way to a repetitive grind, where the player is forced to complete the same activities over and over again in order to liberate city districts from their respective crime bosses. However, where the action fell down due to unimaginative design, its fictional setting of New Bordeaux was propped up by creativity at every step. The city itself is full of small details to really sell the authenticity of the time period, hence it being on this list, but the most impressive one concerns the police response system. Like in GTA, crimes will alert the attention of the law, but unlike that game, the response time and severity of retaliation will alter depending on which part of town you're in. Racism is a pervasive problem protagonist Lincoln Clare has to deal with in the game, but the prejudice isn't purely conveyed in cutscenes. For instance, the police will respond quicker to your crimes in richer neighborhoods, while in poor areas they'll leisurely make it to your position. Subtler elements add to this as well, such as the police's awareness meter popping up even when you're not doing anything wrong because they're inherently suspicious of you. You might not notice these differences if you're just barreling through the open world, but they're incredibly effective once you identify the discrepancies in how you're being treated. Number 7, The Ants, The Elder Scrolls Skyrim. Now, this one is a classic, but it wouldn't be a list about ridiculous details that devs packed into video games without talking about the ants in Skyrim. At the time, all the way back in the dark age that was 2011, the latest Elder Scrolls was once again boasting about its lifelike world. Here, characters had their own routines, personalities, and motivations, while the players could happily go frolicking in the world and come back with plenty of unique stories to tell. However, what players didn't know was that the world was lifelike to the point where even the ants, what looked like little more than a blurry texture on the floor, also had their own routines. They weren't just randomly thrown into the world for added believability, but had their own paths and goals that worked independently from the rest of the game, whether you noticed them or not. So think about that the next time you just go trotting all over them, they deserve to be there as much as you do. Number 6, Dilating Pupils, Days Gone. Days Gone isn't the most polished release from a Sony first-party studio, but that still makes it more packed with detail than most games by default. While the story and gameplay loop left something to be desired, the care and attention that was bestowed on the characters and environments is as solid as anything you'd find in Uncharted, especially when it comes to protagonist Deacon St. John. While a lot of these are welcome additions and do a particularly good job at selling the freaker threat and their unique ecology, there's one feature that I can guarantee 99.9% of players did not notice, and you can't blame them. That's because Deacon is so detailed and such an Ultra HD next-gen 4K 60 frames per second protagonist that his eyes even dilate depending on the light. That's obviously a cool little detail, but a pointless one as well, because Days Gone is a third-person game. You rarely see Deacon's face head-on, never mind get close enough to see his eyes. And why would you want to anyway? After years in the wild surviving with Boomer, imagine the stench. Number 5. The Giant Crow, The Evil Within 2. The Evil Within 2's Giant Crow is one of the stranger Easter eggs from the past few years, and it's actually kinda shocking that anyone actually stumbled upon it at all. A callback to the original game's giant pig, the difference here is that the trigger to make the enlarged animal appear isn't something you'll come across accidentally. To force the Giant Crow into existence, you need to find 3 regular enemies who are hiding underneath cars and then trigger their animations without being seen. When you've done this, they'll make their way to the northern safe house where they can be stealth killed. Once you've done this, head back out and you'll find a huge crow standing in the middle of the street minding its own business. Why? I have no idea, but the extra gel from killing this big bird makes it more than worth tracking down. Number 4. Every area is visible from afar, Bloodborne. Now, it's no secret that From Software games are championed for their interconnected levels. Even when the environments don't directly link back on themselves, it's always satisfying to be able to see an area in the distance you'll know you'll get to eventually, or look back at a speck that's so far away, which epitomizes just how far you've come in your journey. While Bloodborne does have this same feature, and pretty much every part of Yharnam can be looked upon no matter the area you're currently in, you might not know that this extends to pretty much every environment in the game and its DLC. Even the nightmare realms that seem totally disconnected from reality. Sure, it's easy to spot Cainhurst Castle from afar, but it's trickier to see the connections between the Nightmare Frontier and Nightmare of Mensis. They are there though, and a video from 2236 Gaming does a good job of rounding up the connections between each environment and the different layers of the map. Number 3. The Russian dolls are fully functional, The Division. For all its problems, The Division totally succeeded in selling its dystopian version of Manhattan, perpetually stuck in a pre-Christmas Black Friday state that was as spooky as it was atmospheric. Again, it was the finer touches that made it so immersive though, such as the way those gorgeous snow effects interacted with players as they pushed up against cars. Seriously, this was like porn back in 2015, but there's one detail players discovered that's essentially there only as a joke for the most die-hard fans to discover. Eagle-eyed players over on Reddit and YouTube found that in the Russian consulate, there's some Russian dolls, or Matryoshka dolls or Babushka dolls depending on where you're from, used as set dressing. Shooting them, however, will reveal they're actually fully functional, and each bullet will blow away one part of the item, revealing the other, smaller doll inside. Number 2. Orthodox Jewish NPCs are absent on Saturdays, SpiderMan. SpiderMan has always worked best as a street-level hero, and Insomniac Games seemed to take that sentiment quite literally when it came to crafting their take on the wall crawler. They created the most lifelike version of NYC to ever feature in a Spidey game, right down to interactions with random civilians going about their daily routine. Those daily routines are way more complex than they have any right to be though, and there's actually a mind-blowing Easter egg in there regarding the Orthodox Jewish NPCs included in the sandbox. Put simply, on Saturdays, these characters won't actually spawn due to it being the Sabbath, with the game checking your in-game clock to know whether or not they should be in the city. Considering you spend most of your time swinging through NYC in the game, it's not surprising that one of the developers themselves had to reveal this tidbit. Number 1. Lisa is always behind you, PT. Perhaps even more so than Red Dead Redemption 2, PT is the gift that keeps on giving. It was nothing more than a playable teaser for the tragically cancelled Silent Hills, RIP, but director Hideo Kojima made sure it was a perfect snapshot of what a game in the franchise crafted with care, attention, and creativity could actually be, to the point where it's better than most fully fledged horror games. With it being a tease of things to come though, it was always full to the brim with mysteries and secrets for players to find, including obtuse puzzles that were absolutely infuriating to get to grips with. One of its biggest secrets has only just been discovered though, 4 years after the fact, highlighting that the game's enemy, the ghostly Lisa, is actually always behind you. While playing the game, you can usually hear breathing coming from behind you, but turning around will reveal nothing out of the ordinary. Well, in the context of what ordinary actually looks like in this game. This paranoia isn't just your mind playing tricks on you though, as Lance McDonald posted on Twitter that they hacked the game to turn the camera around without moving the character and found out that, yep, she was always there, just out of sight. Also, while I was writing this entry, it was also revealed that her dead body could also be found in the game as well. Who knows what people will have found by the time this video goes live. So that's our list. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Did you notice any of these cool details, and do you appreciate the games even more now that you know they're in there? Either way, while you're down there, could you give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to WhatCulture.com for more lists and news like this every single day. Even if you don't though, I've been Josh, thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.